Hi there. In a world where nothing is certain, that means anything is possible, right? If you want to fulfill your dreams and desires, you are in the right place. You absolutely can have a life of happiness. Everyone deserves an abundance of love, laughter, success, health, and wealth. I'm Tara Chadzakis, and you're listening to the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. The show that brings you meditation, mindset, and motivation. So start by giving yourself permission to be awesome. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi there, and welcome to this week's episode of Happy, Inspired, Motivated. Today I am blessed to have a wonderful guest with me. His name is Adam. Adam was a GP and he's also been a barrister, so he's qualified as a GP and a barrister too. Quite two unusual combinations there of industry. And he's moved away from both of those and he's started a career in leadership and life coaching. So he mentors doctors and people like barristers who are being bullied and need to be able to work through the difficulties that they face when they're going through their training and they're working up through the ranks. Adam joins us from New Zealand today, so he's at the other side of the world. He's 13 hours ahead of me, so bless him. We're meeting at 8 a.m. and it's 9 p.m. there, so he's really pulling out the stops to stay up and talk to us. So without further ado, we're going to speak to Adam and he can tell you a little bit more about his journey and where he's heading in 2021. So hi, Adam, and welcome to the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. How are you today?
Hi, Tara. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. Bearing up well under the pressure of quarantine in New Zealand. Yeah, it's all good.
It's exciting times for you, isn't it? 2 weeks in a hotel room. Must be loving it over there.
Oh, yeah. So, too much excitement. What can I say?
Yeah, and with two young daughters as well, keeping them nice and occupied. I'm sure it's great fun.
Yes, yeah, counting down the days now.
So, Adam, tell me a little bit about, well, first of all, why you're in New Zealand and you're not back in the UK.
That's all my wife's fault, in a good way. She's a maxillofacial surgeon, so she works with patients who've had facial trauma and facial deformities and facial and oral cancers. So,
okay.
So she qualified as a consultant K February 2 years ago, and it's sort of quite a lot of surgeons when they finish their training go abroad for a year to get some extra training and specialize a bit further in a discipline. So
yeah.
She decided that she'd like to come to Australia, and I was up for that. And our girls were excited about it as well. So we went there in July 2019.
Yeah.
And so well before the pandemic started. And we were only supposed to be there for a year. So come August last year, we couldn't actually fly out of Darwin.
No,
so
I'm sure, yeah.
We're like, what should we do? But the hospital needed her. They're very short on staff in general in Darwin. So they were quite happy to extend her contract. And we were like, well, you know what? There are way worse places in the world to be marooned. It's a beautiful part of the world.
Is it? I've never been, so.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. The tropical north. There was no coronavirus there. So
nice.
So, why wouldn't you? No sort of infringements on our civil liberties. So we thought, okay, we'll carry on here. And then it got to a few months after that, and I think she was just getting frustrated because she's able to work as a consultant in the UK, but there wasn't that role for her in Darwin.
Yeah.
So we were just looking around, and she had some contacts in New Zealand and reached out, and they were like, "Yep, we need maxillofacial surgeons. Come across." So that's how we ended up in New Zealand. So we.
So you're quite an unusual entrepreneur, I guess, really, because you came from a medical background originally, didn't you? And medical people tend to, or as far as I would imagine it, they get their medical degrees and they do the specialties and then they stick to it for life. but you moved away from that. So what did you do originally?
So originally, I trained. I was in training to be a surgeon, but I didn't really get along with that. It wasn't so much the work I enjoyed, the
Yeah.
operating. I didn't really like the consultants that I'd worked for in successive jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Quite challenging people.
That's very polite. I'm sure you'd rather say much more than that, but okay.
That's my go-to word for
Challenging. Yes, nice.
So I and also I didn't like the thought of, kind of working under someone, for so many more years, perhaps sort of 10 years until I became a consultant. So I wanted a bit more autonomy. So I thought, well, I'll go down the GP route.
Okay.
So, you're a bit more of your own boss there. You're more accountable yourself. So I went into that and didn't really enjoy that as much as I had hoped. And I'd always had this interest in medical law, and decided to go and work for one of the indemnity organisations in the UK. So doctors pay an annual amount to, essentially what they are is a glorified insurer. So they cover you for the claims against you.
Yeah.
But also the sort of fringe benefits that make them more than just an insurer are, if you have a complaint against you, they'll help you draft a response to your complaint, your patient complaint, or if you have any disciplinary issues, like you get referred to the General Medical Council or something like that, they'll assist with things like that. So it was a very, very interesting job. But I found it fascinating. But when things got super interesting, you had to hand them on. You had to hand the cases on to legal, and I wasn't legally trained. So I thought, okay, I'll study law then. In for a penny, in for a pound. So a bit crazy in retrospect. Anyway, I did my law degree and barrister qualification, and I was called to the bar in 2014. But
was that for a round? Was it?
If only that's just what it was.
It's called to the bar. Sorry. That chance would be a nice thing, wouldn't it? To be able to go to the pub at the moment. But anyway, carry on. Sorry.
Is that? I qualified as a barrister, and then because of stuff going on in my personal life, we just had a little one about a year before, and couldn't really afford to take the pay cut to start off again as a very, very junior barrister.
Mm-hmm.
Decided to try and use that knowledge and expertise in other ways. So I approached various organisations to do medical legal advice for them, and I ended up getting taken on by some of these, and it kind of inadvertently led to a career in medical leadership. So I went down that route, carried on practicing clinically, but was doing some medical director work and some vice chair of an organisation, a local medical committee. Really enjoying that. And then I had the opportunity to have some coaching, some leadership coaching while I was working for NHS England, and absolutely blew my mind, like opened my eyes. Like I can't even begin to describe, but it sounds ridiculous, for someone who was in their early 40s, late 30s, early 40s, for that to be the first time that someone made me think about what my values were, and for me to actually contemplate what my values in life were, and what my guiding principles were, what my moral compass was. Just life's just so hectic, isn't it? How many people actually stop to think about, you feel like your values driven, but to actually sit down and think what they actually are was incredible. So anyway, better late than never. So I worked out what kind of a person I was and what I wanted in life, and it was really, really transformational. And
coaches are pretty good, aren't they? Really, we're not a bad bunch, really. we do some good work occasionally.
Totally get a lot of stick, but when you meet someone who you have a good rapport with, and the messages sort of resonate, then it really is transformational. So so I kind of had a take stock kind of moment, really, and I thought, well, the stuff that they're doing is quite life changing, and the stuff that I'm doing in my clinic, kind of seeing people with, coughs and colds and backache and chest infections and things like that, important as it is, I didn't feel like I was doing anything in any way life changing working as a general practitioner. So I went on some courses, got further inspired, and had my epiphany and decided that's it, I'm going to train to be a coach. So fast forward a little bit, my wife gets this fellowship in Australia, and being a typical medic, not wanting to pass up the opportunity to achieve something, I'm like, right, I'm not going to waste that year while my wife's doing her job and getting extra skills. There's nothing wrong at all with being a house husband, and I was doing all of that, but I was like, I want to achieve something that year. So I did my life leadership and executive coach training in Australia in that year.
Pretty cool.
So I qualified in September, and that's the plan now. I want to get stuck into that and really hopefully make a difference in my own little way in the world.
So who are your ideal clients that you'd love to be working with? Are they in the medical profession as well? Because I know you've talked about challenging bosses, and I have read somewhere, I'm sure, about bullying, things like that. Does that come under your new career path?
Yeah, it does. So I mean, what it's like yourself. I don't know how you decided to do what you do and specialize in what you specialize in, but I think I've come to the decision quite quickly as to what area I would like to niche in, and a few things happened, and my stars kind of aligned, I think. One
of my favorite words, that aligned.
There was definitely some alignment there of just different nudges that I was getting about bullying. I was offered because I've done a couple of podcast interviews about bullying in medicine, and while we were in Australia, I had some students I was tutoring, and they were Indigenous students or of Indigenous descent, and I had stories that they were telling me about when they were being bullied on the wards as students, and it just made me stop and reflect, because when you start off, you qualify as a coach, you just think, gosh, there's so much I could do.
I want to help everybody.
There is, isn't it? It's like, I want to be a life coach, I want to be a leadership coach, I want to do all of it, and I want to kind of work
change the world.
Yeah, exactly. And then it was like I kind of honed in on problems with doctors and medical students, but also thought, because my legal background as well, that lawyers will experience exactly the same thing. They will go through challenges in their training and their early years as junior lawyers, and they will certainly experience burnout and bullying in the same way as medics and other professions as well, I'm sure. So yeah, I kind of decided that I'd like to be a leadership coach who works with healthcare organizations, plus or minus legal organizations, if I can kind of break into that as well, and help with the toxicity that's endemic in those cultures. That kind of unpleasant, negative leadership and the bullying and so on that just trickles down. But at the same time, work with people on the shop floor, the junior doctors and the junior lawyers, and help them work through the problems that you can experience as a result of bullying and burning out and so on. So that's the plan.
So you're wanting to work in these fields because this kind of industry, or are you actually truly drawn to this kind of individual? What do you think that is?
I think I've had experience of being bullied on a lot of occasions as a junior doctor and even as a junior GP. A lot by some of the surgeons that I worked for, unfortunately. unfortunately, but also some senior GPs as well that I worked with, partners in practices when I was just come out of my training and I was locuming. It's interesting. People think that GPs are quite touchy feely, and very very nice and kind, and on the whole they are, and they tend to be with their patients, but they can be their colleagues' worst enemy when they want to be.
That's quite surprising, actually. Yeah, like you say, you have a vision of how these people are outside of the surgery, and that's quite surprising to hear, isn't it?
It is, and it's surprising to learn firsthand, and it's surprising to experience that kind of that treatment at their hands. There's a lot of people in difficulty, doctors in difficulty, doctors in distress as a result of the colleagues they're working with.
That's really sad.
And it seems to be, it's all very heightened at the moment, isn't it, because of the pandemic, and it's just creating a lot more tensions and conflicts where they may have been bubbling beneath the surface before, and this is just facilitating them kind of rearing their ugly heads. So I guess it's as a result of being bullied, and then knowing lots of people that have been bullied as doctors, and doing my research, with friends who I went to law school with who weren't medics, who did go down that legal route as a career, that it is happening in the law as well. That's kind of what has made me sort of choose that cohort of people, and I guess I just have that empathy more with doctors, because the things that they tell me, I can say, actually, I've experienced something exactly the same or very similar. I know how you feel, and I can say I know how you feel with gravitas, because I've been sat in meetings with consultants when I was 2-3 years out of medical school, where I don't know, I felt it was undeserved, but they've been tearing strips off you, and I've been sitting there with tears just rolling down my face in front of people who are very senior to me.
That's shocking.
I can't be the only person that's had that.
No, you're not, I'm sure.
And they don't just have a go at you in private. I mean, that for considering the situation, that they were the decent ones. I've been seriously bawled out on the wards in front of a dozen other colleagues and 4 patients in a bay by a surgeon.
Discreet then.
Very discreet, very discreet. But no one will say anything about it. It's very difficult to challenge that. If the head of the team is behaving in that way, who's going to challenge them? Because unfortunately, there's that culture in medicine still, that you're only as good as your last reference.
You see, I would think that kind of behavior was coming more from a competition standpoint. Trying to be the best, get the most accolades and stuff for doing their profession. But surely there's not that much competition in the medical industry. If you're in a hospital or a surgery, you've nothing to compete for, have you?
No, I agree. And if these are people who are at the top of the tree in their profession, they've already made it. They've already climbed the slippery pole. What do they have to gain or benefit from being so unpleasant to a junior colleague in front of everyone? It just
superiority, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah, that's it. Part of it is that, isn't it? Some kind of like personality disorder, superiority complex. So yeah,
I'm the big knob. You got to listen to me, and I'll make everybody realize that I'm above you. That's huge ego.
It's that person's name is above the patient's bed on the wall. We know who the boss is.
Yeah, exactly.
No need to, if someone makes a mistake, and that particular situation I'm talking about, I didn't even make a mistake. It was a kind of communication error. That's take someone aside and figure out what their side
Yeah.
of the story. We ball them out, But yeah,
So I'm wondering, so you're wanting to work with the people who are being bullied, so the professionals that are getting bullied or need coaching to help them come out of their limiting beliefs and their self-doubt. But what about, maybe you should do some coaching with the top knobs and show them how to be real people.
yeah.
That might be
Well,
good coaching for them.
definitely. I completely agree, and that I'd like that. I'd like to take a sort of two-pronged approach and tackle it from the top and on the sort of the coal face, if you like.
Yeah.
And that's where I think approaching the HR departments of the hospitals and saying, we all know that bullying is a problem in the profession. What are you gonna do about it? You want to be seen as a good employer. You want to attract the best.
Yeah, it does have to come from the top down, really, doesn't it? Because that's where the real change happens. If you can get at the top management, and get them to make changes, it ripples down, doesn't it? And then you won't need to help the people being bullied because it wouldn't be an issue, would it?
And we all know that these organizations have these tricky characters within them that they're thorns in their side. To be honest, they can't get rid of them. They can't do anything about them. It's really difficult because then they're paranoid about facing legal action in return from these people. Unfair dismissal and all that sort of stuff. And so you have to tackle it, I think, on a kind of group level. So not, okay, we've got Mr. So-and-so, he's a brain surgeon, he's a real problem in the surgical directorate. Okay, can you just coach him? You can't do that. You can't make it about him.
No, you can't. No,
you have to do it's like, okay, let's have a group of 5 or 6 consultants and speak generally to all of them, but really we're trying to get to that one because we know the others are all working all right.
But the others would benefit as well because they would see things that maybe they could improve on as well, even if they're not the root cause of the problem. And like I said, the same in the legal system. I guess it's management coaching, isn't it, that you're looking at more than just Joe on the street.
Absolutely. I didn't get very far in the profession. I kind of got to that point where I had to make a decision and decided not to carry on with it. But up until that point, and I'd applied for, I don't know how much you know about kind of working as a barrister, but when you get your law degree and then you do your bar training course, you then have to do something called a pupillage.
Okay.
So you're a pupil barrister. So for 12 months, it's like being a house officer in a hospital, like an intern in a hospital. So it's before you're fully signed off and you've got your wings and you're allowed to fly solo, if you like. You have a pupil master or a pupil mistress who supervises you or over the year, or two pupil masters for 6 months each or something like that. And when you're a student, when you're looking at what chambers you might be interested in going to work at, you do these things called mini pupillages. So you go along for like 3 or 4 days or a week or 2 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
I went along to one of them, to a very, very big renowned chambers in Birmingham that will remain nameless. And I was put with lots of barristers over the course of the 5 days or however long I was there. I was put with one chap who didn't really engage with me. I think it was like he was a bit they've stuck a student with me kind of thing. And it was an awkward time. And then when he did finally start talking to me, he's like, "Oh, so what do you do then?" I was like, "Oh, I'm a doctor." "What type of doctor are you?" "I'm a GP." "GP? So what are you doing here then? You should go and train to be a solicitor, not a barrister. We should have specialists working as barristers." I was like, "Okay." And I was
speechless.
I was so taken aback that I was furious with myself afterwards for not kind of like, speaking out. But
a lot of people do believe, though, don't they? If they choose a profession or a career and they think that they have to stick to that for life. They're not allowed. You're not allowed to change into a different field, especially if it's a specialist field, because my God, these people they're really possessive about their little niche, aren't they? Their little community, and they don't like strangers from a different community coming in sometimes.
That's really true. Completely agree with that. the bar is a niche within the law, isn't it? The majority of people in law are solicitors,
Mm.
and then there's a few, I don't know what percentage, but the minority are barristers, and you're right, maybe there is that they feel a bit threatened. And
I don't understand what the difference is. How is it different? How is a barrister different to a solicitor?
So most barristers are self-employed and they work as a collective, or called a chambers. So they have their room in the chambers where they do all their preparation, but they tend to be the ones that do the courtroom representation, the advocacy side of things.
Our solicitors don't do that then.
In very, very general terms. So solicitors are, in more often than not, more office based. They see clients, and obviously they build the case, and then usually if it goes to court, or mediation or something like that, where some kind of in-person representation is required, then they will instruct a barrister.
Okay. Yeah.
So there are solicitors who have what they call higher rights. So they have rights of audience in court and they can do it themselves. But, more often than not, they'll pass it on to a barrister. And so I don't know whether this chap I was talking about had that thing where he felt a bit threatened.
Secret handshake and everything.
So unnecessary.
You need an initiation, like killing a chicken or something like that. Something you see on a movie.
With your one trouser leg rolled up, and
Yeah.
It is kind of Python-esque, isn't it?
Oh my goodness.
But I could see how he could be unpleasant to other people very, very easily. I mean, I was a guest in his chambers, to all intents and purposes, and that's how he was treating me.
Yeah.
So God knows how he treated his juniors and his colleagues and so on. But and another legal example, I went for an interview at an intellectual property chambers in central London, and I did my A-levels a long time ago, 1993, long time ago. And at the time, you didn't need straight A's or straight A stars to get into medical school. In fact, the one that I went to, they were more interested in what extracurricular stuff you could bring and how you could enrich the life of the medical school rather than academics. So I got, I applied for it, got my offer, didn't have to get straight A's or whatever. So essentially, a bit lazy. I worked as hard as I needed to get the grades to get into medical. So got a couple of B's and a C. And bear in mind, at the bar and the intellectual property bar, you're basically competing against people with firsts from Oxford who've done a master's in Harvard, and the opening lines of this interview was, just having a look here at your A-level results. 3 B's and a C. Not exactly stellar, are they? I was just like, again, I was just dumbfounded. Instead of saying to him what I've just told you, like, I didn't need to get straight A's, that was my offer, blah de blah. I just sat there like a rabbit in the headlights, letting him treat me
you did.
like a piece of dirt, And so I think that the legal profession is also probably quite fertile ground for bullying. And
you should have said, "Look, mate, you give me an interview, so it's the joke's on you, isn't it?"
That's true. Oh my god.
Crazy people. Yeah, you see, we don't see any of this being out of the whole loop of that kind of industry. We don't. I mean, I know it happens in all sorts of industries. I've been bullied in the workplace as well, but not to that degree. It's usually a little bit more subtle than that, a bit more, covert, if you like.
Yeah,
than with a big smile.
Casual misogyny and racism and that kind of stuff, which is pretty. It's also endemic and very insidious, isn't it? And can, the recipients know it's going on and they take it to heart. I mean, look, the stories I could tell you from, when I was, the surgical days, which were a long time ago, I still carry them with me. I can still remember, I can still visualize myself in that room with tears going down my face. I can still visualize being on that ward with that guy bawling me out. you know,
it stays with you, doesn't it? You feel that devalued, and your self-worth just drifts away, doesn't it? It takes a while to get that back.
Yeah, completely. And that's, and that's where things like imposter syndrome can come from, those kind of roots, where, there's good ground for coaching in that kind of stuff, and resilience, and conflict management, anxiety,
I mean, in my coaching, I always look at the limiting beliefs and self-sabotage stuff, because that's so important. And it's not just something that you deal with, in a couple of sessions. It takes a while. I mean, even myself, I still have things that I catch myself saying, and I think, oh my God, why did I say that? That just completely destroys everything that I stand for. And I don't believe in that anymore. Why is it still stuck in my head? And it's really difficult to get just general comments out, isn't it?
It is. I mean, classic for that, of that for me would be when I've seen patients, and they'd say, oh, so what's your occupation? Oh, I'm just a housewife. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're not just anything. You've got the hardest job in the world. I've done some house husbanding or house husbandry. I go to work for respite. I'm like, yes, it's
isn't every parent.
But on top of the kids, you've got the house to look after as well, and the shopping to do, and I'm like,
and it doesn't stop, does it? At the end of the day,
don't demean yourself. Don't put yourself down. It was a real bugbear of mine when people said that, and I guess I was perhaps always destined to go into coaching, because I'd be like, look at all the things that you do within that role. It's amazing what you achieve. So people that are trying
to better themselves, and it pops into their head, well, you can't be happy with your lot, or you can't have it all. And people are like, they take a step back, and they keep doing what they've been doing, and they don't try to better themselves because they don't think that they should be doing that, because they'll get judged. It's crazy stuff. The mind holds a lot of stuff in it, and you've got to work on getting through it, haven't you?
It does. I mean, my mum, she'll be 68 in April. So in the 60s, she was born in 53. In the late 60s, when she was looking to decide what she's going to do with her life, she has an older brother, and I don't, I'm sure she doesn't kind of blame my granddad for this. He's still around, by the way. He's 95 this month.
Bless him.
But it was just a generational thing, and the culture at the time. He was like, oh, well, you don't need to stay on a school. You're just going to end up having kids anyway. So what's the point? And she didn't let that define her, but she didn't get to come to education until very late in life. But I'm glad she did. I'm glad she gave it a go.
But you don't have the aspiration, do you? Because you don't think you think that's your purpose, is just to do that. But there's no reason why you can't do both, is there?
No. I mean, I do come from a working class background, and I was fortunate enough to be born in Birmingham, and Birmingham has a lot of grammar schools, and I was blessed with a brain that works quite well, and I passed the 11 plus. But even after that, one of my aunts said to my mum, oh, he'll never amount to anything in life.
Ooh, that sticks forever, doesn't it? You never amount to much, love. Oh, God.
Yeah. But that I didn't carry with me. That's not the reason I went on to study medicine. I didn't want to prove her wrong. But it just, it's just how people are, isn't it? And but it can, for some people, it can leave a metaphorical scar that just doesn't heal. And so good quality coaching can get people out of that,
Yeah, definitely.
And you're, as the coach, you're in their corner, you're rooting for them. It's so powerful.
I don't think people appreciate it until they've tried it. The whole coaching industry can be quite, people don't really understand what it means, and some people think it's if they turn to a coach, it's because they're weak. But it's the exact opposite, isn't it? It takes such strength and courage to stand up and say, I could really do with some help getting through this. And people don't understand that.
And the best people are coached, and that's how they stay the best.
Yeah, there isn't a top businessman anywhere or woman in the world that hasn't got a coach.
Exactly.
Definitely.
I gave a talk to some emergency department registrar, so middle grade doctors in Darwin, about coaching and mentoring. And I just started it off by saying, so, who here understands what the term coaching means? And there were about 12 or 14 of them in the room. And one of them kind of put his hand up and said, oh, that's for sports people, So fair enough. That's what the lay people's understanding is. And asked them about mentoring, and more doctors probably have experience of being mentored. So a couple of them knew about mentoring. But this is a group of educated people who have no clue what the benefits of coaching are, what the process entails, there's a fantastic video, a really short kind of 1.5-minute snippet interview of Marshall Goldsmith talking to someone called Dr. Jim Kim. And Dr. Kim was a doctor by training, and he's the CEO of the World Bank now. So for his parents, he went into medicine, kind of immigrant Korean family, to get like a noble profession. And he didn't really want to be a doctor. So anyway, he went down the financial route when he achieved what he thought his dad wanted him to achieve. And he's like, right, I've done that now, Dad. I'm going to do what I want to do now. So he went down the financial banking route, and obviously a massively high achiever. But, there's this, Marshall's asking him about the benefits of coaching, and it's so powerful. It's like such an incredible 1.5 minutes. He talks about the surgeon Atul Gawande and how he benefits from coaching, and he's a top flight surgeon in the States. And it's just, it's just an incredible thing to watch. So I use that a lot when I'm talking to people.
That's cool. So you're getting started, and because things aren't really face to face anyway, you're going to be working on the online space anyway, aren't you? So you can work internationally. I mean, we've just set this up this morning, and I'm 8 a.m. and you're 9 p.m., aren't you? So there's a little bit of difference in time there. But you are, even if you stay there, you can still work with people all over the world, can't you? So it's pretty cool. We've got a global village going on, and everyone's accessible. Absolutely. So if people wanted to get in touch with you and work with you or find out more about what you do, how can they get hold of you, Adam?
So the main two ways would be email, and my email address is just dr.adamharrison@gmail.com. So that's dr.adamharrison, one word, @gmail.com.
Okay.
And I like LinkedIn. I use that quite a lot. So I'm on there as Dr. Adam Harrison on LinkedIn. And the plan is over the next couple of months, get website up and running and get a Facebook page going and stuff like that as well.
Well, we can put your link to your LinkedIn, and probably not your email, probably LinkedIn's better in the notes here with the podcast. So that'd be really cool. We can get that done for you.
Yeah, thank you. That'd be brilliant. Yeah, appreciate that.
So 2021 is going to be a new and exciting year for you to grow your business, and that's so cool. I'm excited to see what you bring to the table and how many people you can help this year. It's going to be really good.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I'm enthusiastic, and I think there is a need. I think there's a real need out there. There's a lot of people kind of in pain, if you like. So yeah, hopefully I can help quite a few people.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for spending your midnight hours with us today, Adam. We appreciate it so much.
It's all good. I managed to stay awake. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, and 3 more days, and you'll be out of quarantine. You can actually leave the hotel room that you sign.
Man, that can't come soon enough. If I could give us all sleeping medication to sleep for the next 3 days and then just wake up and we could go, that would be ace. But I can't, unfortunately.
No, unfortunately, you just have to keep watching Disney Channel, whatever it is that you're watching all day over there.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us today, Adam. I hope you have a great rest of your evening and the rest of your week. Take care.
All right, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe, rate and review so that we can reach more people with the message just as they need it. And if you'd like to get in touch with Adam, don't forget you can find him on LinkedIn. I'll put a link in the show notes here, or you can find him on his email too. I'm wishing you the best week, sending you lots and lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you for listening to the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. I'll be back next week bringing more meditation, mindset, and motivation for your happy and successful life. To find out more about our community, go to tarachatzakis.com/happy, inspired, motivated.